As far as drumming, it's a little bit interesting the way I came into the drums. My uncle played the bass guitar. My dad he actually he wanted to be a drummer like all throughout his life, but it was one of those things he just never picked up. But I was taken to wanting to play the bass guitar or playing like the electric guitar. So my uncle had a bass guitar. He really didn't play anymore. He let me borrow it for about a year. I just never, I had too much trouble getting like holding down the strings and things like that. I learned like a couple things by ear, and a couple friends that I met up with showed me this and that, but I ended up giving him that bass guitar back and then telling my dad, I'm like, well, I thought I wanted to play guitar, but if the bass guitar, if I'm not really picking that up, I guess that's not going to work out for me that well. And just one day my dad came home with a drum set. So
Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters That podcast. I'm your host Brian, and joining me today, hailing from Florida, Bill Davey. How you doing, brother?
hey, pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad, and you're actually new to the group, right? You recently joined our drum tuber group.
Yes, yes, I did. Definitely enjoying it.
What was your YouTube name? Was it the Wild Bill Sticks or something?
Wild Bill Rockin' Six.
Rockin' Sticks. Okay, yeah, yeah. You and Ash, you guys did a collaboration not too long ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, we did. As far as How You Remind Me by Nickelback.
Okay, that was pretty cool. I got a the idea was that.
He actually he reached out to me and he was like, wanted to know if you want to do a collaboration. And I was like, well, I've never done one before, but I've seen some of the collabs out there look pretty cool. And uh, he told me Nickelback, How You Remind Me, and I remember that song back from that CD actually originally came out. Pretty much instantly had it, and one of my girlfriends actually took that CD from me. But yeah, it was definitely an awesome song when it came out. That whole album, I was kind of obsessed with it actually when it came out.
Which album was that one? Was that the one that had Photograph on it too?
No, it was the one prior to that. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it was their original album, kind of their, coming onto the charts with that one.
I see. It's always funny with Nickelback because I always remember the story when they were in Portugal and they were getting pelted. I don't want to say big rocks, but they were still rocks, but they were still getting hit by them, and they just ended up getting up and leaving because the crowd did not want them there at all. But I think it was, I think it was because it was a metal venue, or they were, I guess, playing before a metal band or something like that. I can't remember all the details, but I do remember seeing that and thinking like, this group really takes a lot of heat
Yeah,
because of
yeah,
that.
I remember hearing some crazy stuff about them back in the day, and the whole thing. Some people really like Nickelback, and then there's those people that just don't care for them whatsoever. But I've always thought their music was pretty good. I know some people say, well, they're generic rock, but hey, to me, rock is rock. I mean, so it's something you can jam along to and enjoy. Hey, why not, right?
And so as long as you enjoy it, that's what matters the most. So
Yeah.
I will say, Bull with a Name on. I think that's how the song title was, but I remember that one was one of my favorites from them too. But that one was in remembrance of Dimebag Darrell from Pantera after he was tragically taken from us
Nice.
too. So that's pretty cool. And it's cool to have you along in the group too. I know Ashley
Yeah,
was
for
trying to do a
sure.
little promotional video. I guess are you participating in it too?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't recorded my portion. Hopefully I can this weekend. It's been a little bit crazy this weekend for me. My mother-in-law's in. My son graduated pre-K this morning, so we had that. Then swimming lessons with him today, and then uh, he was a pretty good kid today, so we picked him up a Bowser toy on the way back from his swim lesson. So I was just like, I gotta be home by 3 for this.
Bowser toy. Was this for a new Mario Brothers movie they recently came out with?
Yeah, yeah, he's been kind of obsessed with Mario. About a year ago, I started playing the Mario games again from my childhood, and he kind of took to it. he liked the Sonic movie initially, and we were playing Sonic games, and then I happened to start to play Mario, and he starts asking me about it. And before you know it, he's playing Mario, and he's having me get back into playing Mario. I hadn't really played those games since I was, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 years old. So it was kind of crazy, and he had me beat Mario Odyssey before the movie came out. Took him to the theater and all that. Now it's available at home, and he's watched it twice already since it just came out. What, a few days ago?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'm not too sure what to make of it. I've always gotten worried with those sort of movies because I think they tried something in the past and it went horribly wrong. So it's like, are we sure we're
Yeah,
gonna get it right this time? That sort of thing. So it sounded like a little bit of a mixed reception. So I'm not too sure what to make of the Mario Brothers. I know it was probably good in the movies. I think the audiences at least gave it some good reviews here and there too. So
yeah, yeah. I enjoyed it. I think it's kind of one of those movies that's good for all ages. So that's kind of one of the nice things about it is that they catered it to people that may have played the game, and then people that are maybe just getting into it too. So I thought I know a lot of people had kind of their things with the voice of Mario, but after you see the movie, it's not really a big deal. You just kind of get used to it, and he actually seemed to fit the role pretty well.
I was say you need like an Italian guy in there or something like that to at least make it sound like it's
That's
that's what it's always been. So I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
Have you always been a Nintendo guy? Have you kind of jumped around various consoles? And I don't know if you're a PC guy too. So I guess fills in.
Oh, yeah. As far as that goes, I kind of started out on Nintendo as a kid. My dad actually he told me that if I wanted to get my own Nintendo, I was gonna have to work for it myself. At the time, I was a kid. I had a newspaper route, so I spent a lot of time delivering newspapers to pay for my NES. I had the one that came with the Duck Hunts and the Mario came with like the laser gun. But yeah, I started out Nintendo. I kind of went to Sega Genesis after that for a while. Had a PlayStation. I had a PlayStation 3 after that. Then I kind of just I got out of games for a while, and I got married and had kids and all that. And before you know it, the kids are looping me back in. I started getting into some of like my older childhood games. Did have a Wii, but to me, the Wii was just kind of different because I was using it to like do like those dance games and like the Wii Fit stuff. So for me, it wasn't being like a so-called like typical gamer. I did some PC gaming along the way too. I had like Duke Nukem back in the day. Played Unreal, Doom, Shadow Warrior, some of those PC games. Jedi Knight. Recently, I actually, due to getting back into the video game stuff, I actually did pick up another computer. It's like an older business Dell computer. Put in a nice graphics card in it. I've been playing a little bit of Forza on it. A couple of my buddies, we used to play Forza at their house years back on I want to say it was the original Xbox or Xbox 360. But it's crazy. I feel like I've been out of the gaming like for the last like 8 or 9 years, and I'm like getting back into it, and the graphics are just like it's hard to believe what they look like from how they looked when I was a kid.
Yeah, I went from just being like pixelated to now it's like almost lifelike in a certain way here and there. Even though once you start getting
Yeah,
outside the
for
box, you
sure.
start noticing where they drew the boundaries, so to speak. So I know that's what some gamers do. They
Yeah,
want to just keep. I don't know if they want to say breaking their graphics card or whatever it's called. It's like you just try to stretch it as far as you can and just trying to see the different realms, as I probably
yeah,
would say, like how far we can go in this game. So I don't know.
yeah,
Sometimes
for
it's weird.
sure.
So I would say I've always rolled with the Sony. I've always had that.
Nice.
I got a 360 a while back. Kind of played some games on it, but I never really got fully into it. I know I did beat the entire Gears of War. Well, I shouldn't say the entire Gears of War series, but at least 1, 2, and 3. Then
Nice.
I'm actually wanting to get back into it. I want to actually play Elden Ring on the PS4 that I have.
Yeah.
Kind of record my progress to make like a little diary, so to speak, my own little let's play, that sort of thing. So
Yeah, yeah, I've
Maybe a
heard
separate
some
YouTube
good
channel.
things about that one.
Yeah, that was
Nice.
a. I want to try to make sure I pronounce his name right, but Miyazaki. I'm just gonna say his first last name, Miyazaki. He's from Software. They've always made great games. They're the
Oh,
ones responsible for the Dark Souls, the Bloodborne, Sekiro, and what was the last one? I know Elden Ring. It actually might be it. I don't know if there might be another one, but I know those have always been the big ones. They've always delivered. They're just really going deep.
yeah,
I'll tell you that much. So they're and once you at least get the hang of it, it's at least fun to at least enjoy yourself. Then so not so much the first time
for
around.
sure.
So not sure if you ever played into those kind of games.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into some of those yet. I've heard some good things, so in the near future, I might start playing something like those Elden Ring series. I did play a little bit of the Hogwarts, that Legacy one, the new one. That seems pretty cool. Um, Kind of getting stuck. That's sometimes the issue with me with the games. I just tend to get stuck on them, and then before you know it, I'm on YouTube like looking up a walkthrough or something like that to get myself out of where I'm stuck at. So I'm starting to get there a little bit with Hogwarts, and the world's pretty big to like navigate around. So trying not to get lost of where you're trying to go in the castles and stuff like that. It's sometimes be a little tricky after a while. I'm sure you get used to it though. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, you got to be the first time around to at least get comfortable with those high enhanced games, so to speak. Just the
Yeah,
ones that have like big open worlds and all sorts of storylines that stretch out here and there too. So yeah, I know what you mean. Trust me, I was there. So
yeah. I'm getting into Zelda too. The Tears of the Kingdom. I started that one. That one is definitely. I played the Zelda games a little bit back in the day, but I never beat them or anything like that. So it was just like, I went over to a friend's, I played for a while, and then I get stuck, and my buddy's like, oh, well, you got to do this and this. So I'm just like, I'm already looking into like stuff on YouTube for that Tears of the Kingdom because I'm just like, I don't want to be stuck.
yeah,
It's a lot different nowadays though because back in the day, you go to the store and pick up, a guide for the game, and now you're just, going out to YouTube and typing in like walkthrough of whatever game you're playing, and there's just so many of them out there now. It's just like all those guides right at your fingertips, pretty much, which is pretty cool.
a lot of people like to stay indoors now. At least look at the television screens more these days. So,
True.
but I would say I did play Zelda a little bit. I forget which one it was, but actually it was me and a friend. We stayed up good amount of the morning hours just to like get as far as we could, like here and there too. I know we were actually looking up little cheat sheets that they would actually put online,
Nice.
and you just look that up just to see like, okay, how the hell do we get to the next part, like here and there. So
Yeah,
I forget which one it was, but I do remember it was fun. I just wish we had been it, to be honest. So to be
for
determined.
sure.
Let's just say that. All right,
Nice.
but Bill, welcome to my podcast right here. Uh, so the way this works is I'm just gonna ask you some simple questions so we get to know you more both as the individual and as the drummer too. So got him right here.
Yes.
Ready to roll?
Yeah.
All right, let's start with the first one. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You already told us how you got into video games, so I guess how'd you get into drumming?
As far as drumming, it's a little bit interesting the way I came into the drums. My uncle played the bass guitar. And my dad he actually he wanted to be a drummer like all throughout his life, but it was one of those things he just never picked up. But I was taken to wanting to play the bass guitar or playing like the electric guitar. So my uncle had a bass guitar he really didn't play anymore. He let me borrow it for about a year. I just never, I had too much trouble getting like holding down the strings and things like that. I learned like a couple things by ear, and a couple friends that I met up with showed me this and that, but I ended up giving him that bass guitar back and then telling my dad, I'm like, well, I thought I wanted to play guitar, but if the bass guitar, if I'm not really picking that up, I guess that's not going to work out for me that well. And just one day my dad came home with a drum set. So uh, he shows up from work and he comes home and he's like, hey, I need you to come down here and come out to the car and help me. real quick with something. So I go out to the car and there's like a full drum set just like laid out in the back seat of his car and like his front seat, his trunk. I mean, it was only a four piece, but he kind of just, with all this cymbal stands and everything, he just kind of had other stuff in his car. So I brought it in. And then the next step there, I was just like, well, I don't really even know how to set up this drum set. I've watched plenty of bands on TV and stuff like that. So I ended up seeing how they were set up, like at drum stores and things like that. And I just kind of mimicked a little bit how they were set up. It was a Pearl, an old 80s Pearl export or something like that. It was like, it was hard to tell exactly which model it was, but at all the research I did, it was more than likely an export. It had like a real low tune to the toms. It had pinstripes on it too, so of course pinstripes are gonna have kind of that dead sound to begin with. They even had a pinstripe on the snare drum, a clear one, which I thought was years later was kind of interesting to me that they had that head on there. But that was kind of what I started out on. The cymbals weren't anything great, but I thought the set itself sounded not too bad for what it was. But so started taking some lessons here and there. I listened to a lot of the Beatles records. Growing up as a kid, my dad had a lot of records. He had 8 tracks. He wasn't having me listen to Van Halen. He was having me listen to Black Sabbath, maybe Loverboy. There was just so many bands that he was into. But I really took to the Beatles when it came to drumming because I was just starting out, and a lot of Ringo stuff seemed to be, I put it on a pair of headphones or, play my boombox. That I was just like, I'm kind of feeling the groove of the song. And then he signed me up to do some lessons. I didn't stick with the lessons too long. I took some lessons down. If you know where the new Brighton music shop was at, I don't know if it's still there even in Beaver County, down in like the New Brighton area. Which I know you're from Pittsburgh, so
yeah. But yeah, you were originally from Pennsylvania. Yeah, I actually not been to New Brighton. In fact, there's actually a music store over in the Pittsburgh region that I've always gone to, and they've always delivered, at least in terms of my drum set that I've rolled with, which is the TD25K. Pretty much everything else too, but I know they have these now hybrid sets that at least look like more of your legit sort of looking sets. Still pretty much electric, so to speak, but they at least look like an acoustic set in a way too. And it was also funny when you mentioned the Beatles, because I noticed the poster behind you. I guess was that one of their album covers, or is that one of their posing moments?
I think it's a posing. It looks a little bit like one of the albums as well. It's kind of just like I have a couple different ones. There's like a shirt that I have mounted over on this side of my wall, if you can see that. My music room, I have I have a Zeppelin poster over here. Figure I might as well give you a little tour real quick.
Sure.
Got a Freddie Mercury painting over here. The Doors. This was an interesting piece of art. I have a shop down here that had art. Thought that was pretty cool. Over here, went to Vegas and saw the Beatles Cirque show, which was cool. And then I have my Queen banner over here. But yeah, I'm definitely into a lot of different bands, and you might have seen my kit over here. I guess I might as well show you it real quick.
Yeah, might as well.
People have probably seen it on my YouTube, but it's my kit that I had as a kid. Actually, this was my second drum set. This one, so it's a conversion kit. It started out as a 5-piece kit, and as I got older, I basically added the this 14 by 12 tom here and this 18 by 16 floor. It used to not be electronic, and I converted it. I didn't have this drum set for a while because I moved to Florida, I actually only had room for this green kit, which you see a couple pieces of it, but that's a Bonham kit that my buddy and I had actually put together years back.
That's a pretty killer set. I guess is that still Pearl or is that what sort of brand was that one?
It's a do-it-yourself.
Okay, so
My
basically,
buddy and I, we made the green one, and the red one is a Premier.
okay. I thought it was like a what I call Frankenstein sets, where you kind of like mold everything together. But I guess that's along those lines. But I guess I didn't know if it was like taking something from a Pearl or a Tama, put one and two together and just see where that goes. There, get you right there and there. But we did have a lot to cover right there because you did cover a good bit right there. I guess. Yes, where'd you live in Pennsylvania before you moved to Florida?
I lived in Zelienople first, and then Butler.
I thought there was more to the story. Sorry, that's why I paused. But yeah, it was right there. In fact, wow, we were actually really close together. I guess when did you move to Florida? And I guess was it your wife that told you to move down there?
In 2014, my job had actually shut down, and we had an opportunity to move. So we had different places we could move to, and I knew a couple people down here. My aunt, and my uncle were down here, so we ended up making the big move. My parents weren't the happiest about it, but it was what was going to work best for us. So.
I would say that's where all the old people want to go. Since Florida's like the other side of paradise, to be honest, and it's always there's always good weather. I know summer wise, I guess it is pretty humid right now this time of the year.
Yeah, it's like almost 100 degrees feeling today, so it's one of those days that you're like you're wanting to stay in the air conditioner.
Oh, wait till the sun
It's just
sets.
too hot to really, yeah, too hot to enjoy yourself when you're out and about when it's sun's beating down on you and it feels like 100 degrees. But overall, I do like it down here. It's a little bit different than Pennsylvania, but I'm a car guy too, so I like to be able to take my car out all year round. So that's a plus.
What
For
kind of car
sure.
is it? Is it like one of those old style sort of 1980 Fords or something?
I used to have a GTO when I originally moved down here. It was 2006, and then I had a Camaro as well, and I got rid of both of them after I had kids. But I have a 2016 Chevy SS, which is a sporty four door now. So still get to enjoy it every once in a while. Being that I work from home now since all the COVID stuff, I don't drive it as much as I'd like because the wife has a car too, and I'm just like getting kids in and out of her car is easier. So I'm just like, let's drive your car.
I was to say, did you get like the
But
minivan when you started having kids?
we have an SUV, so we when we originally came down here, we had an SUV also, but it wasn't a three row. So she got rid of her Subaru that was a two row. Now we have a Kia. Out of all cars, I never thought I would have a Kia, but the Telluride is a pretty nice Kia. In our experience so far of having it for, let's say it's been about 3 years.
That's pretty cool. And I did want to mention about the Beatles real quick because, believe it or not, I was actually in the UK and we actually found where Abbey Road was. They took the
Oh,
iconic
nice.
picture. Unfortunately, we have buses, cars, and all the ones trying to come through there too. So you had to be real quick with your picture taken. But we
Oh,
did.
that would be. Uh,
But we did at least get the picture real quick, or at least it was just me and my parents. So we only had to do like two at a time, just to like try to get us like showing us walking that whole thing. Like you see him like the arms kind of stretched out like this, and then like the legs kind of spread
yeah.
like that. So it had to be quick. So I don't know. Like, did you ever go to the UK try to find Abbey Road, or have you not been outside the states?
Oh, I'd love to go. No, I've never been. If I ever have the opportunity, though, I would just I kind of have a little bit of an obsession with studios. So, I would be totally all about going to as many studios as I can. And that's kind of been a more recent obsession with like studio stuff. Sound City, I watched like that documentary. I watched the Beatles documentary on Disney Plus about Abbey Road. Like, I'm all into wanting to learn about these studios as much as I can.
I did take some pictures. Yeah, the studio, the Abbey Road studio was like right there too. Had all sorts of writing, graffiti all along the wall too. So I guess it was paying homage to all the artists who came through there. Probably namely Beatles for
Nice.
the obvious reason, but yeah, UK is always pretty nice, especially being in London and then going around to the various surrounding areas. I know we went to a spot where Windsor Castle was as well. I kind of wish I was able to
Well,
meet a lot of my UK friends there, but they live a little further outside of the London territory, which is uncharted
oh,
waters to say the least. Too. So, did you mention
God.
what brand your sticks were by any chance?
My sticks, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I use just like whatever sticks that I have, or whatever I can get it cheap. Usually, especially when I played acoustic, I would I would buy them in bulk. 'Cause when I was in bands in the past, I just would break my sticks a lot, so I would kind of get mad that I'm like, oh, I spent 11, $12 on those sticks, and I'm like, I broke them. So originally, I started with like Vic First. I used a lot of those for a while. I used Pro Marks, and my current sticks are like cheap on stage from, I don't know if it's Musician's Friend or whichever company, maybe Sweetwater that I bought them from. But though I use 5Bs that are hickory and nylon tips is what I like for the converted kits. That seems to work for me. I think in the last 3 years I've maybe broken two sticks. So I think that's pretty good compared to how many sticks I broke when I played acoustic. I would just chisel those sticks on the cymbals, and I don't know, maybe some of the time I was a little bit wild with the cymbals too, because I maybe broke a few cymbals back playing my acoustic. I haven't broke any of my electronic cymbals, fortunately.
Yeah, the electronic cymbals seem pretty durable to be honest, because I've been using mine for a good few years now, and they may have the marks in it per se, but they at least haven't shown like any like major wear and tear to be honest too. So it was it's funny what you mentioned about sticks too, because actually I roll with 5As, which I'm not sure if it's the right one considering that I do metal. And I was gonna say, since you said you were wild on your drum set, I guess that explains the YouTube name, Wild Bill Rockin' Sticks. So I guess speaking of which,
Well, I might have been a little wilder in my younger days, but I still like to wail on my stuff every once in a while.
well, I guess that's how it goes too. You're always wild in your teenage years. That's when you start getting rebellion. Say, no, mom, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. That sort of thing. Also, in terms of like
Yep.
drumming, especially when you're feeling it too, then you're like really going all over the place. Especially the people you idolize as your heroes. When you're also seeing them having fun on stage, even though they're
Yeah.
probably drinking out of their mind, doing some sort of drugs or God knows what. To be honest, so.
Yeah,
But I guess speaking of
for
heroes, you
sure.
did mention about Ringo Starr. I guess was he your biggest influence, or do you have many others?
As far as my initial influence, he was definitely a big one. I like his drum sounds. I like his use of like the tea towels, and whoever helped him with that technique in the studio. I always thought he had a really interesting sound. And then as I got, a little bit older, I started getting into like the sound of Led Zeppelin, so John Bonham, his drum kit sound, his drum kit. I was really just obsessed with how thunderous his drums always sounded on the recordings. Watching his stuff on YouTube, his just those drum solos that he would do are just out of this world to me. Like the way that he would play, and for me to, I always thought to myself, I'm like, oh man, I'm like, if I could ever play a drum solo like that, I'm like, just how fast his hands would go under and over, like it was just insane. So he was definitely a pretty big influence. I actually saw the Jason Bonham experience a couple times. Not as good as his dad, but he's definitely a solid player as well. I know a lot of people give him like a hard time because whenever he does the Moby Dick solo stuff, or a lot of the stuff, he'll incorporate a little bit of double bass, and people are like, "Whoa, his dad played single bass," and it's like they think that he's cheating or whatever. But you see him play it live, you might change your mind a little bit about him, the way he plays. I think that's at least the way that I felt seeing him play twice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say it's always hard for especially considering your father's been like this major influence in the drumming community too. So I imagine it's pretty hard to like fill those shoes, as they would say. So, and I think you don't want to just to mimic what your dad was doing. You want to also make your own sort of thing too. I remember that's how it was with Roy Williams Jr. after his father had passed. Everybody just looked at him saying like, "Hey, just go and be like your dad," that sort of thing too. He's like, "No, I want to do my own thing." So it's all on the same lines too, and that's always great. But
But yeah, I mean, I have some others too. Stuart Copeland of the Police, really like his style, his offbeat uh, groove that he has in some of his songs. The tuning of his drums, that the way a snare sounds, it always jumped out to me. That really tight snare. I remember reading some interviews that he had of him just like tightening the heads, just like the snare in specific, like that he would tighten it as tight as he possibly could. And then he would say how it sounded like a tin can until, they put it under the mics, and then it had that classic, police sound that we're used to. But it just, the whole thing with the music production and with the sound, just so crazy how different the drums can sound from going from one room to the other. You can make no changes to that drum tuning wise, and you get to a different room and it just sounds completely different. That always kind of blew my mind when I was in different bands, playing different venues. Because, if your kit was mic'd in one room, it might sound a certain way. Go to a different venue, it might not even sound like your drum set anymore. It's really wild how, the sound can just change so much. And whoever's running the board too, if the kit's mic'd, I mean, that can make a difference too, how they EQ everything. But yeah, as far as the Police, Stuart Copeland's another one. Mike Portnoy is probably really high up on my list as well. I don't feel that I could play a lot of the stuff he could play, no matter how hard I tried. But just like his style and dedication to drums and the sound of his kit, the famous Star Classics that he played back in the day in the Dream Theater days. I did see Dream Theater once. It was after Portnoy had left, though. It was just like right after when that happened that I finally got the opportunity. I could see them. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, I really wanted to see Mike Portnoy play. So I was a little bummed out by that, but the new drummer was really good too. So I was just like, it was one of those, I was mad, but I wasn't mad in the end.
I mean, hey, you're still seeing Dream Theater.
Exactly. And then I would say the others, I like Adrian Young a lot from No Doubt. Really like his style. He kind of had like, that ska slash punk feel to a lot of his stuff. I became a little obsessed with his drum sound for a while. His light up acrylic kit that he had back in the one tour, I think it was the Rocksteady tour that they did. I had a blue acrylic snare that I made, and me and my buddy mounted it was like a indoor house light inside of the snare. It was like a tube light. It actually held up. We put a switch on it and everything, and I did use it at a couple shows, but it was more or less just for the look. It was cool though, doing that little project, having a acrylic light up snare. And Roger Taylor of Queen, huge fan of him. I saw Queen a couple times, not in the days of Freddie Mercury, unfortunately, but I did see Roger Taylor play. I was 10 feet from the end of the stage at a show that I saw in Pittsburgh. I want to say now it was probably, I don't know, I'm just guessing 15 to 18 years ago. It makes it sound like it was a really long time ago now. But Paul Rogers was singing from Bad Company. He was doing the vocals, and he actually was really good. And then after I moved to Florida, I saw Queen again with Adam Lambert singing. He was really good, actually. He kind of surprised me actually seeing him live. My seats weren't as good though for that concert. I mean, feeling those floor toms that just really stood out to me at that Pittsburgh show when he was hitting those floor toms and the punch of the bass drum, and he had the roto toms, of course. I really liked Roger Taylor with his style with when he's hitting the hi hat, when he's hitting the snare, as the accents. That always stood out to me in all this stuff. And then, when you really think about it, a lot of other bands are kind of doing it too, but I don't know, just something about those Queen songs that just really stood out to me for some reason. But yeah, there's a lot of drummers out there that influence me. Even if I've gone out to see a show and I really like the way the drummer does something, I could be influenced by them, to be honest with you. So it's try to pick up little things here and there from everybody that I see play. Even if I'm watching other people play on YouTube, might be something that I'm just like, oh, that's really cool the way that they did that, or I never really thought of it that way. That the way they switched up that fill on that song. But yeah, I'm really into the drums just from start to finish. Building them from the ground up, getting shells, getting hardware, picking all that up, picking out my heads. So I kind of got into all that for a little while, and that's how I got that Bonham kit that I made. And then my kit that I showed you, the red one, that was the second kit that I had. And I started talking about how I acquired it. When I moved to Florida, I only had room for one drum set. So I was like, well, the green drum set's kind of what I was playing at the time. It's not as big as what that 7-piece kit is. So I brought it down and I played acoustic until kids came along. And then I was like, well, I can't just quit playing. I'm like, but at the same time, I'm just like, oh, this Bonham kit is just way too loud. So that's kind of how I transitioned over to getting the electronic drums. I flat out said to my wife, I'm just like, I've played drums since I was, 14 years old. And was like, there was times I took breaks. I had a couple injuries along the way of that I had to take breaks. But my dad was coming down to Florida to visit me, and my mother-in-law wanted to get her vehicle down to Florida because she was going to get a second place to stay down here. And I said to my dad, I'm like, is there any chance that you can give me my drum set back that I've been storing at your house for the last 8 years? And he was just like, yeah, I'd love to get it out of your old room. It was like, I had a bunk bed. It was literally the whole top bunk bed. It was just all the stuff, stands under the bed. And he's like, yeah, I'll bring that stuff down. And I got the kit down here. Within 3 months, I was converting it. So I played it as an acoustic for maybe a month. And my ears were bleeding because I was used to playing my Roland TD1 TMK that I had with headphones. And I was just like I kind of forgot about how loud those cymbals can be and how ear piercing they were in my room. And at that point I was just like, yeah, I'm like, I guess I'll convert it. I can always switch it back if I wanted to down the road. And that's, I met a couple buddies, friends on Facebook, and they kind of told me how they did their kits. before you know it, I'm heading over to the hardware store, with a big list of, I'm like, oh, I need carpet tape, I need foam pads, I'm gonna get some L brackets that are normally used for a wall, and then I'm going on Amazon ordering the piazzas so that I can hook everything up. Amazon, I ordered all the wiring. There's me ordering nice wires, cutting them, splicing them so I can get everything soldered the way it needed to. But it's held up. It's over a year old now, and I haven't had any issues with it. Down in the bass drum though was a little tricky with all the padding in it.
I had to say that was actually one of the more longer stories we had. One of our interviews too. So actually, no, we just went from talking about influences, then it seemed like you kind of incorporated a little bit like the bands too. So there's a lot to take in there too. But I guess that was pretty cool. And I actually never knew about the drummer from Queen, for instance. You always hear about Mercury and Brian May always seem to dominate the scene too. But I did a Queen collaboration. It was also with Ash. He put the whole thing together. It was another one bites the dust. So you strike me as someone who just does a lot of covers from like the classic rock groups. Is that what you do, or do you kind of branch out to some like the alternative, maybe some metal here and there?
I try to branch out to a little bit of everything. I would say that the classic rock stuff's probably one of my favorites, maybe. But being, a kid that listened to a lot of, Nirvana in the '90s and alternative stuff, I have quite a few, and like I always try to stay ahead of my YouTube stuff, so I'm always one that has a backlog of some sort. At one point, I think I had like 50 something songs in my backlog of like videos that were already done. And, I see like a plus and a minus to having all those, but I do have some alternatives here and there. I did Presidents of the United States. I did Peaches. I think that was last year. So I was kind of in the alternative a little bit. I went through a phase that I like pop punk a lot. So I do some Simple Plan, Good Charlotte every once in a while. I've seen Simple Plan a few times. They definitely put on a really good show. I think I have maybe at least one of theirs still in a backlog. I always liked the 80s music too. I became a little bit obsessed with the 80s like sound with the gated drums and like with the crazy reverb. So you'll see some 80s stuff. I tend to gravitate to like sometimes like movie soundtrack stuff that maybe I haven't seen very many drummers cover at times. And then, sometimes I'll do songs that, everybody's heard, of course, too. But yeah, I try to do a little bit of everything. I try to hit all the generations, whether it be late 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and then modern day. I would like to say that in the future, you should see some heavier stuff too. It sometimes goes off of my mood. Like it's very interesting sometimes the way that I end up picking out the covers and things like that.
I do remember Simple Plan. Yeah, that was I think I only did two of their albums too, but I think the first one, and that was probably their debut album. That had like all the songs on it too. It was I Do Anything, and unfortunately a lot of the other ones are not coming to me at the moment too, so I do apologize for that. But I forget what the
No, you're all good.
I forget the second one, but I know that one.
Another popular one.
I'm sorry, what?
Perfect was another pretty popular one of theirs.
That's probably what it was. Yeah, I think that was from their second album. though. I don't know if that was.
I'm Just a Kid was another.
I'm Just a Kid. Yeah, that's right. Okay, now it's starting to come to me. Okay, thank you. But I was trying to remember, but I guess while I think it over, because actually, yeah, I've given us some good long stories there, so there's a lot to take in, to be honest. But I guess what do you love most about drumming?
For me, drumming's almost like it's an escape, like from reality, even sometimes. Sometimes it'll be nostalgia. If I'm playing in '90s, I guess I'll leak a little bit of one of my back covers. It might be coming up sooner than later, but I joked around to my wife about some of these '90s alternative slash like pop songs. And then she had told me that like one of her boyfriends back when she was like in high school or something, she's like, "Oh, I remember that song. It reminds me of this guy that I was with." So just for giggles, I told her, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna cover that one." Just the mess up there. So yeah, that one was The Calling. If you remember them, they I don't know how many actual what we could call hits they had, but that Wherever You Will Go song, yeah, that'll be coming up in the near future. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about having a good time, having fun. Um, it's just whenever you're going from your day to day, and whether you're working or you have things that you got to do around the house. I have the two little ones, so they're one of them's 4, going to be 5, and the other one is 2, going to be 3 real soon here. But they'll actually come in to the what I call the room I'm in now. I call it my drum room. That's what I call it. And they'll come in and actually sometimes join me. And I don't have my set connected like up to the PA to necessarily play for them. So they'll come in here and usually watch TV or something. So they're having like their little escape, and then there's me. Like I'll even sometimes do drum covers. They'll be sitting on their little couch or little chairs, I could call them, that are in here, and they'll be watching, Baby Shark or whatever show, or Mickey on the TV, and I'm in my own escape, pulling up some stuff in Superior Drummer. I might just be playing with different sounds in there. I might just pull up a kit, just like a raw kit, and I'm like, how can I make this one sound? And I'll start just maybe just playing it, and then before you know it, I'm just like, I'm like, this probably might sound good for this or that song, and then I'll just randomly, I use Reaper, so, and I have a lot of drumless tracks, so like anytime like I hear a song that I'm out and about, and I'm just like, that could be a song I might do at some point. I'll just go ahead and take the drums out of it. I usually use Moses AI, or I'll use Isotope to take out the drums, and then I'll have it there for that time that I want to escape and be taken back to the 60s, 70s, or 80s. So for me, it's like an escape from reality almost, because with the electronic drum sets, I feel have, some people might not think of it, but they have a little bit of a benefit, because I can play that 50s or 60s, you know, song, whether it be Beatles or Temptations, whoever I'm playing that's an older song, and then I can jump and play Nirvana or the Foo Fighters or something like that right after, and the drums sound completely different. I do have a lot of expansions too, so sometimes I'll take the easy way out, maybe use like a preset, but more often than not, I seem to be doing a lot of stuff from scratch anymore. Um, I know when I first started doing some of those 80s covers where I like really was going for an over the top 80s sound, I had one shot Simmons samples that I was using to get like the actual Simmons drum sound on. I'd pump it up with a bunch of reverb. I'd run another bus and have tape on it. And it just, for me, the whole production of it is just like, I've always liked video editing too. I don't consider myself to be like an advanced video editor, but it's just something I enjoy doing. So at the end of the day, I enjoy the drumming part, and I really enjoy the production of it. So all in all, it's just kind of combining a lot of my hobbies all into one. I get to be on the computer. I like computers. I get to play with software. I like software. I get to, play my drums, which obviously I love playing. And, drumming makes me happy. If I don't, play the drums for a while, it's just like, whether it's that you're having a good day or you're having a bad day, for me, being able to play a song that maybe is not as happy, it's fun too. So at the end of the day, I mean, it really, it's an outlet to, some people might even call it drum therapy. It could be some sort of therapy for some people. Um, you know, I can just think of the days if I didn't play the drums and, I didn't have that outlet to just jump on my kit and, you know, jam or play along to a song, my day just wouldn't have been the same. So,